Hey guys, it's Cayley. I am back with another What Sold from Last Week video. In today's video, we are going to be going over sales that are happening right now on eBay and Poshmark. Sales have been pretty good. I cannot complain. Definitely the normal up and down. We're not really doing anything differently here, so let's just dive in to some of these sales. All right, guys, today we are going to be going through sales that happen between September 15th through the 21st. I did make today a little bit of a shorter video just because I do need to catch up on all of the what sold videos. So I've got a small selection of sales that we're going to go through, but I did choose specific ones to talk about with you that I thought you would find most relevant for the season. So in total this week, I sold 292 items for gross item sales of $8,632.52, making my average item sale price, which just means less the shipping, for around $30. Kind of a lower average sale price. I'm still trying to bump the total one back up to between 35 and 40, which has been my goal all year, and sometimes goals do take a while. On eBay, I sold 174 items. On Poshmark, I sold 118. My average item sale price on eBay is very strong, around $36. And then on Poshmark, I sold some lower price items for an average item sale price of around $20. Let's dive into some of these individual sales. This one was probably my favorite sale of this particular week, just because I love when you can take something that has a lot of distressing, a lot of issues, and be able to put value into it. So I came across this vintage Carheart men's jacket at the thrift store. I debated on whether to pick it up due to the wear. There were several rips, there were, just overall distressing general wear, not to mention it had an embroidery on it. So this was from the Humpback Creek, a hydroelectric product in Alaska from 2011. Very, very specific project, and not a whole lot of people would probably want this particular embroidery. However, since it was Carhartt, and I know that vintage Carhartt jackets can go for crazy amounts of money, regardless of the embroidery, I thought it would be worth getting. Plus, I know that people do like cool graphics about Alaska, even though this one was very specific. I listed this for $200 or best offer, and it did sell very quickly within a couple of weeks for an offer of $155, which a buyer sent to me and I accepted. Normally, I don't put best offer on newer items unless I thought I ought to price high and then just accept best offer and let the market decide. Again, surprisingly, this sold extremely quickly, even though it did have all that embroidery. So if you come across any kind of vintage Carhartt jacket, or possibly even a modern Carhartt jacket, I would definitely consider getting it and maybe just adjusting your price a little bit, because there is such a heavy market for this. Plus, if you find one without embroidery but just a lot of distressing, sometimes I actually think people are willing to spend more for an item in Carhartt if they're actually distressed. So that has been my experience, but overall great sale, and I'm glad I did take the risk as I was going back and forth at the thrift store. All right, next up, another interesting sale, novelty sweaters, just as a category. Novelty meaning any kind of graphic, embroidery, anything that's out there and stands out to you in sweaters, especially if they are super thick like this one is. You definitely want to be taking a look. This one was actually completely unbranded. It was a very specific type of sweater, this word right here. So you definitely want to keep your eye out for this particular style of sweater, but just novelty sweaters in general. This one was really cool. Like I said, it didn't have a brand, but it was super thick and had all the qualities of things people are looking for right now. But we listed this one because it had stains at $120. It did sell for our full asking price. I think originally we weren't quite sure where to price this because prices were all over the board. I am glad we ended up pricing it at $120, and this one did take several months to sell. It's probably because we priced it slightly high for an unbranded item, but keep your eye out for these novelty print sweaters. You would be surprised at what some of them go for. Next up is a Bolo brand. It is Sun Kim, And you can find their stuff in tops and some other different things, but their jackets is really where the high sell-through rate and high ASP is. This is a women's rain jacket. You can see it's very plain black. We estimated this to be a size 1X, and the sun chem jackets, especially in larger sizes, can bring a lot of money and have just a dramatically different sell-through rate than like their tops do. So we listed this one competitively at $105. It did end up selling for our full asking price, although it did take several months to sell. Normally, I don't like to sit on things for several months. However, at this price point, I thought it was a good pickup. Next, this is another Bolo brand, particularly in plus sizes. This is Citron Santa Monica. Now, this brand's probably going to drop in sell-through rates as we are moving into colder weather, and they're typically known for their warmer weather pieces. However, if it were in a plus size, I would still consider getting it just because much higher sell-through rate in the larger sizes. This one is a butterfly print, which highly increased the value. It was a silk blend, one of the fabrics Citron is known for. It did have, unfortunately, a small flaw, so we listed this one at $100 with that flaw. It ended up selling for our full asking price, and this one took a couple of months to sell. Next up, this is more of a style-based flip, although I do like this brand in vintage pieces, which is Carol Little. Here is the label for you. Not everything in Carol Little, it does have to be a good style, but I do find that a lot of her pieces are pretty good. This one was very on trend. Velvet is super trendy right now. These darker colors. You can see we used fairy, artsy. We could have used a whole bunch of keywords, which we probably did in the description. It was just a very on trend piece. We listed this for $75. Yes, you heard that right. $75 for a style-based piece. It did sell for our full asking price, and this one only took a couple of months to sell, which is very quick for a style-based piece. I'm just really enjoying learning about the hot ticket items, style-wise, that are trending, being able to find them almost every time I go thrifting and selling them for prices like these. If you want to learn more about the style-based pieces, we have tons of deep dives over on Reseller's Edge. This next one was a really cool flip because I did not know that this brand sold shoes. This is Goodrun Shoes. It's that brand that nobody can ever figure out the spelling for. This is a great brand to pick up also in clothing. Tend to be very like artsy, log and look, more mature. I had no idea they made shoes. You can see how artsy these shoes are. So keep your eye out for those. I listed these for $70 and they did sell for full asking price. And these ones actually sold the exact same day that we got them listed. Next up, this is a newer men's brand to me and definitely one that I would look for. I think it's pronounced Aurelion, but this is a men's linen polo shirt. You can see just how plain it looks. These are pieces that are very understated. These are pieces at the thrift store that people pass on all day long. You just have to know to look for these, I guess, kind of quiet luxury understated pieces, because that's really where the money is at. That is honestly what a lot of people are wearing these days. I listed this men's linen polo shirt for $80 and it ended up selling just 6 days after getting it listed. This is another style-based piece. This is by the brand Tommy Girl, a Tommy Hilfiger brand. These are a pair of vintage Y2K chunky leather boots. These did have some wear to them. They were also a smaller size, 6.5. However, very, very on trend. Again, another style-based pickup. Had the chunky heel, had the square toe, a neutral color. It was a vintage label. All day long, I picked these up. And you can see just how popular they were because 27 people were watching this when it sold. These ones were listed at the end of July, so they did take several months to sell. However, they ended up selling for my full asking price of $50. I just love the style-based pickups because $50, $75, sometimes over $100 I'm getting just style-based pieces regardless of brand. Next up, this one is more of a brand pickup. This is the brand Oncloud. The shoe itself is in great condition, but there's definite staining throughout. If you aren't familiar with On Running, I would definitely become familiar with this brand. These are called the Monster On Running sneakers, and I have found, regardless of comps because sometimes you can look up certain Oncloud shoes and they don't perform well. I have found the Onclouds in general, even if I have to price slightly lower to be more competitive, they always sell for me. Even with some spots throughout, I think what really matters is how does the tread look, and these ones were in great condition. Because of the wear to these, I listed them at $55. They sold on an offer to watcher for $47. And they only took a couple of weeks to sell. Again, a really trendy item. 26 people were watching these within just 2 weeks. Next up, this was a bins pickup. This is the brand Wild Fang. If you guys look up this brand, very small amount of information, I would say. I think less than 100 if you look it up on eBay. They're known for androgynous style workwear looking clothing. This is a women's pair of short alls, and the thing with this is they do have slightly lower than 100% sell-through rate. I want to say it's around 75% when I look this up. However, at the bins, I'm going to risk it on the item and just price lower than everyone else to sell quickly. So I listed this at $50 and it sold on an offer to watcher for $42. This one only took a couple of weeks to sell. Sometimes if the sell-through rate isn't quite there, I will use pricing more competitively to increase my sell-through rate. Honestly, that only works if the sell-through rate is still like 50-75%. If it's much lower than that, I don't think that price-wise there's much I can do to get the sell-through rate to increase. This is a similar kind of item where I priced a little bit lower to get the item to move. This is the brand Les Artistes. I've had good luck with this brand. It's by Spring Step. They make interesting mixed media, artsy looking shoes. I usually come across the boots. Again, we price slightly lower than everyone else to get them to move. Some people have these listed for over $100. I listed these for $50. And they sold on an offer to watcher for $42. They took about 2 weeks to sell. This is another brand that does not have 100% sell-through rate anymore, but depending on the piece you have and how you price it, can move quickly. This is Wooden Ships. They are known for their wools, cashmeres, mohairs, sweaters. What I have found with this brand is although it does retail very high, the sell-through rate is just not usually there unless it's one of their novelty print sweaters. I would consider this like a novelty print. It has the spell out. This was so appropriate for the season. This particular sweater, the Bonjour Witches one for Halloween, actually has a really amazing sell-through rate. So I listed this one for $50, which was the going rate. It did sell for our full asking price of $50, and this one only took a couple of weeks to sell. If I were to come across this brand, I would consider, is it plain? Is it novelty? If it's novelty, I'm way more likely to get it. If it is more plain, am I getting the cost of goods cheap enough so that I could maybe price competitively to move the item quicker? This is a brand that has been performing extremely well for me. Very good following on this brand, Natural Life. This brand became really popular this year, especially their dresses. This is a tiered maxi dress. I listed this for $45 and it sold on an offer to watcher for $38. This one actually only took 5 days to sell. So again, if that shows you how big of a following there is, people are buying dresses still moving into colder weather. Even though this one was more of a summery piece, the reason it's still sold is because it is longer length, it's a larger size, and a darker colorway. So with the dark, deep purples around fall is very trendy. So maybe keep those factors in mind while you are out hunting dresses as we approach the winter season. Next up, this is a new Bolo brand to me called Western Rise. Very high sell-through rate. These are a pair of the men's travel evolution pants. I listed these for $35 and they sold on an offer to watcher for $30. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Any kind of men's dressy looking but athletic feeling pants, which is what these were, you definitely want to look up. It doesn't always pay off in, every single brand, but I would say 95% of the time it does. That's how I'm learning some of these newer brands like Western Rise. So in the men's department, keep your eye out for this brand. Next up, here is another dress that I sold. This one is Old Navy. It is linen. It is a longer length and it's a size 2X. So a lot of factor stacking went into this piece. I listed this Old Navy dress for $30 and it did sell for our full asking price. This one did take a little over a month to sell, but I am going to really halt picking up summery dresses like this, especially if they're linen, only because we're moving into that colder weather. So I'm being extremely mindful of that. One of the reasons we wanted to pick this one up is because it had that rainbow look to it, which was still trending. Last one on eBay before we dive into the Poshmark sales that I've pulled. This is one of my favorite brands to pick up in plus sizes, plus size women's tops. Ralph Lauren. This is a size 2X. I can usually guarantee myself at least $25, even if it's a plain item in Ralph Lauren plus size tops. However, when there are more factors involved, when it's a prettier piece, has a nicer pattern, in this case, this one does have that pattern. It's also button up and it's longer sleeve. I list much higher. I can start adding money to it. So I listed this one for $35. It sold on an offer to watcher for $30. This one did take a few months to sell. But this is, again, one of my favorite bread and butter brands to pick up in plus sizes. All right, we're going to head on over to the Poshmark sales. This was also one of my favorite sales because I actually showed this in an Instagram reel as one of the style-based pieces I picked up a couple of months ago. I had a lot of people tell me, Cayley, the sweater's really pretty, but I just don't think it's going to sell. And here we are. This is Grace and Karma, which is like a no-name brand. What I really liked about this piece was that rainbow aesthetic, soft ombre pastels. I knew we were about to come into sweater season. It was kind of an oversized one. It had that balloon sleeve, very trendy. And yeah, just a lot of really cool vibes with this one. We definitely could have probably added a few more keywords. One that we did use was boho, which I thought was really appropriate. This one sold on an offer for $25. I listed it for $35 or $30 and accepted an offer of $25. Just a style-based piece that a lot of people are passing on, but they're good bread and butter padding sales. Next up, this is one of my favorite bra brands to sell. It is the brand Negative. They typically have very thin looking bras. This one sold for $30. I have really reeled back on just bra as a category, just because a lot of the brands that used to be good are no longer good, and we ended up with a ton of bras that I had to end up either selling at a really cheap price or just redonating. So I'm very careful with bras now, and there are a handful of brands that I do like getting. This is definitely one of them. The ones that I have noticed that are performing well are typically a comfort looking bra like this one is. Next up, this is a vintage LL Bean coat. During this time of the year, vintage LL Bean outerwear is an absolute bolo you definitely want to keep your eye out for. This one is a blanket lined. I've talked about lining in another video about fall stuff you should be looking for. Certain kinds of lining do add value to coats, as well as some other things like jeans, but definitely coats. So if you have a special piece with an interesting lining, you definitely want to make that apparent and really consider that as you are pricing. This is a women's vintage long coat with a blanket lining, Sherpa lining, and we ended up selling this for $100. I had this listed much higher. I've actually been sitting on this coat for a while. I'm really happy with $100. I was initially hoping to get more. I think if this would have been a men's jacket, it would have sold extremely quickly. But the fact that it was women's, I should have really kept that in mind with my price because sell-through rate just wasn't there. All right, another bolo brand that flies under the radar because their pieces are so plain. To be honest, they feel very thin. Like, to me, JoJo Brown pieces do not feel extra special, but it is a brand with a great sell-through rate and a high ASP. They're typically one size. You can see this is a pretty plain V-neck top, just all black. So again, you got to know what you're looking for. I think we listed this for $65 and probably accepted an offer of $55 for this plain black top. Next up, this is another style-based flip, more bread and butter. This is just the brand Express, but it did have a lot of factors that are trending right now. This is an all black kind of sheer top. It has some interesting sleeves. You can see we used a bunch of different keywords in both the title and the description to sell this one, and it sold for an offer of $20. Next up, this is a newer Bolo brand to me in sweaters. It's called Callahan. Some of their pieces go for quite a bit of money. This one had that rainbow aesthetic to it, which is why we wanted to get it. I think I had this listed at 70 or 65, and we accepted a best offer of $57. This one actually sold pretty quickly. This is another like factor stacking / style based piece. This is the brand Dish. Not exactly high sell-through rate. Some of their pieces do well. The pieces that seem to do well in this brand are the cottage core looking stuff. This one was new at tags, and it had that, again, very cottage core looking vibe to it. It had puff sleeves. It was linen. So a combination of factor stacking and style base. And this actually ended up selling very quickly for $30 on Posh. And last one, another Bolo brand that is newer to me is Mission Workshop. This brand is made in San Francisco, and it does have a crazy insane following, and their stuff does go for a lot. This is a men's camo button-up shirt, and we sold this very quickly on an offer for $90. This brand also does some kind of collaborations with certain brands, so it's definitely one that you want to be aware of and keep your eye out for.
All right, guys, so that's it for what sold last week. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching. If you're not already, consider subscribing down below, hitting the notification bell. That way you get notified every single time I post these videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.